Welcome back to Face the Facts. Now we can get into deeper what our module is about. So, the last time we were talking about records, and what you were supposed to do was gather up all of your belongings, all of your assets, all of your liabilities, and organize those in a fashion that is able to be placed in a safe spot that you can find at another time. Place values by all of your assets so that we can use them in our statements. And this module, we're going to be talking about the statements section. So, the information that you had while you put those things together, I hope that you learned more about yourself, about the certificates and income that you have. And also, maybe you found out about income that you didn't even realize was actual income or an asset to you. So we're going to move on with the balance sheet. So the idea with the balance sheet, right, is on one side we have our assets. On the other side we have the liabilities, and our liabilities plus our net worth should equal our assets. So again, just to rephrase that then, assets minus liabilities equals net worth. And that's an important number to go by. Net worth is really our pulse of how we're doing financially. If we own more than what we owe, then we have a positive net worth. And we want to strive to always be increasing that net worth over time. At the very least, we want to be concerned if our net worth is going down. And if it is, we probably need to look at some things. If it's going down, that's because we're spending assets down or we're taking on way too many liabilities. You can take a look at where this would start. Liquid assets right here, and the savings and checking accounts. Invested assets might include a Roth IRA and a 401k, and obvious physical assets, your car, your home, any personal property that should count for here. This could include like jewelry, example would be another one. Also, all of these things are going to add up at the bottom to total all of our assets. So that'll be like down here. That represents everything that we own. On the other side, we have our liabilities, our monthly bills that are due, our credit cards we have. You might have a credit card here as well if it's a little higher than what we would pay off in the short run. And then long term might include things like mortgage or student loans. And then you'll add all of that up. Assets minus liabilities will equal the net worth. All right, so as we review assets, we have our liquid assets, our tangible assets, and our investments. So liquid being anything that's cash, tangible, anything you can sell and turn quickly into cash, your investments, anything that you're earning interest to grow your wealth. And reviewing liabilities, we have our current liabilities, anything like a phone bill, a utility bill, and then your long-term assets, planning for the future, mortgage, long-term loans, car loans, most of all, student loans. So now we're going to go into our income and expense statement. it's going to look a lot like a budget. In fact, they're typically going to appear on the same statement where we have budgeted expenses or projected expenses versus our actual expenses. So the income and expense statement will be a record of our cash inflows and a record of our cash inflows or cash outflows. A simple sample of something like this is our income levels again, our salary, wages. You might have investment income, scholarships, and grants that you might be receiving for school. These are different than loans because they are money you're receiving that you won't have to pay back. And of course, you might even be entitled to Social Security benefits if that's something within your lifestyle. This could be from survivor benefits if you lost a loved one as well. This could be for your disability or for permanent or partial disability, and of course, a retirement someday. For our expenses, note that we had fixed expenses, mortgage, or obviously we could put rent here if that's more appropriate. We have car insurance, homeowners or renters insurance, taxes we're going to have to pay, and then our variable and flexible expenses being food, utilities, clothing, and then the difference between the two. So total income minus total expenses gives us a surplus or a deficit. In other words, are we making enough money to meet all of our obligations, or are we not making enough at all to meet those obligations? This is really beneficial, especially as you're just starting out, to do this month by month, right? So it may seem tedious, but if we go 6 months at a time, we can end up not seeing something that gets us digging us in a hole, if you will, right? If we're constantly falling behind every month, that hole that we're digging ourselves into financially is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So if we're keeping track of this from month to month, at least in the beginning, we can make sure that the hole doesn't get any bigger. And in fact, we can make sure that we get out of that as quickly as possible through proper planning, control, and proper management. So with our income statement, we're going to record your cash inflows, we record your cash outflows, and then we decide, how does that line up with your budget and what you were expecting to do for that month. Just to recap, we're going to do it month to month so we know exactly where to find the problem if one arises. If you decide that things are going good, you can decide to do income statement. You can decide to do an income statement maybe every 6 months afterwards. But if something goes wrong, you want to go back to doing it at least once a month. That way everything is understood and you don't have to dig too far back. We definitely want to make sure that when you're keeping your records that everything is simple and organized. So anytime you have to go back to it, you don't have to really dig far back to find what the issue is. So to make that income statement, the first thing you want to do is itemize your income. That's create a complete listing of all of your income. Income from current employee, which is pre-tax salary. That's your wages versus your actual take-home pay. What is it that you're actually bringing in the house? Other sources of income, your loan, scholarship, income from family and friends, retirement or pension, investment or interest income, business or side hustles. So, some of these are variable incomes. So each month you may not have the same income because you may, do a side hustle and get an extra $100 that month. So your income is going to be a little higher and you may have a surplus that month with your income side. Then you're going to itemize your debts. To get the other side, you have your fixed expenses. These are your rent, your cell phone, your cable, internet, car rental, health, vehicle insurance, loan payments. These are all your current bills. if we go back to our net worth statement, these are your fixed expenses are your current bills. Your variable expenses, you have food, gas, or utilities, credit card payments, household expenses, religious giving. These can also be current bills as well, depending on how you would like to categorize them. Then we have non-essential expenses. We have entertainment, travel, luxury items, and donations. So these are variable expenses, rather. And, as those come up, you want to jot those down so you can make sure to put that in your income statement to figure out if you're in a deficit or you're in a surplus, and if you have money left over for the month. The other things that you definitely want to make sure is inside of your income statement is all of your goals that you've set for yourself, especially your savings goals. And so we have different type of savings goals and saving fund accounts. We have our emergency savings for irregular or unanticipated expenses. And this could be for a job loss or home or auto repairs, medical expenses. We would like for you to have at least 5% of your car or home saved up in a bank account somewhere. We also want you to have at least a recommended 6 to 12 months of income. And I know 6 to 12 months, if you've heard these lessons, maybe you've heard 3 months. But here at CashFlow Cake, we want to actually make sure that you're secured. And if you have at least a year of income sitting there, you can go a year without working and be able to get yourself where you need to go. Sometimes 3 months of no income is not enough, and you need a little bit more time. So if you save that 6 to 12 months of income, if something horrible were to happen, you have enough time to get onto your feet. It's not going to be the best of income. It's going to be the most basic, I can survive type of finance that you have that you have available to you. However, it's still going to be sufficient, and you're not going to feel like you're drowning with 6 to 12 months of income at an emergency. Then we want to have your short-term savings goals, your travel, new entertainment, holiday party events. We'll have long-term savings accounts, a college or higher education account, new vehicle, new home or relocation, retirement. So these might vary. You may have some of them, you may have none of them, but depending on what your goals are, you want to make sure that those are part of your income statement so you can do the math and make sure that you're actually covering your expenses. These would be your required saving goal funds would be expenses for you because you want to make sure that some of your income is going towards it. So whenever we do break these down and get all of your income, your expenses, your savings goals down, you want to try and put these in visual presentations to see visually, what's really going on. A visual presentation helps for you to see the full effect of your personal situation, and then it makes it more real and balanced. When you're looking at a chart and you say, oh wow, I have 9% of everything going to attractions, and I have 58% going to accommodations. When you see that slice of the pie that's really big, you're like, wow, if that accommodation instead was food and drinks, you'd probably be like, oh wow, I need to stop. I need to really cut down on my food and drinks and maybe put some of that money somewhere else. And there's different maps that you can use, and we have different tools that you can use to create these charts for you. So, visuals can be really helpful. I like to look at them. I think they're very helpful. So you can use these for your expenses, see where your money's going, right? And the percentages are what we're spending on. You know, some people like percentages. Some people just like the ability to look at the chart itself and see the different colors, and it just makes more sense to them that way. Now, we showed earlier the table that just said how much we ought to spend. That's pretty helpful, but it can also be helpful to kind of see from the magnitude and of expenses which things really are taking up the bulk of your money, you know. And so is it housing? Is it food, right? Is it healthcare? So any one of those things are what we want to map out and get a sense of. Is that too much? Is the question that we're trying to answer. Are we spending too high of a proportion on it? And do we have too many assets of a certain thing? So if we look at our assets, do we have too much money in our checking account? Or is it just right? You know, do we have too much money going into our car? Or is there not enough money going into our car? So, you know, do we have more consumer debt than we have strategic debt? And will we spend some time talking about credit? But suffice it to say that when not all credit is created equal. When we buy a home, for example, that was appropriately priced for our income range, we might often take out a mortgage. Well, that can be a strategic use of debt. So borrowing some money to get an appropriate degree so that you can advance your human capital and get a higher paying job, that student loan can be a strategic investment. But buying something because it's on sale and you really, really wanted it anyways, maybe not so strategic use of credit. So we want to get a sense of whether or not we're using more consumer credit versus more strategic or long-term or asset-based credit. Including our human wealth. So visuals can help us to see that too. And again, Excel, which is one of the software packages we're using to simply look at our financial statements, lends itself very nicely to taking the data we enter in and turning them into financial statements themselves or turning them to financial charts. So again, you might have some tools that are available to you that CashFlow Cake provides, or you may have Excel spreadsheets, and you can just put those numbers in and create a chart that's going to really help you dictate exactly what's going on with the numbers that you found in your ingredients, okay? So we showed you the monthly expense sheet. We had 2 of them. And so you definitely want to take that and do your budget. And we're going to talk about budget in way more detail in another module. However, here you're going to take your daily expense tracker and then multiply your expenses that you had by 4. If you have tracked at least 1 week, okay, so that 1 page that you took, multiply that by 4, and that'll be your actual estimated monthly expenses. Now, if you go ahead and do each, entire month of expenses and you have 4 sheets, then you just use that number. But if you only did at least 7 days or 5 days, then you want to take that number, multiply by 4, and it'll be an estimated expense, okay? You can continue to jot down your expense daily for 1 month to get a more in-depth analysis for your habits and needs. And then you can continue to do that by downloading an application on your smart device, or in order to make the experience fun and consistent, you can go ahead and put that on your computer or any device that you have, just to make sure that it's right there and ready for you. Then just keep updating it and keeping a track of your budgets and keeping a track of your monthly expenses, so you know exactly what you're spending and what you're not spending and what you may be spending too much or too little of. It'll keep you on track, especially if you develop new habits on the financial journey with CashFlow Cake. You don't want to be building your cake and then all of a sudden you start spending buku money because you save some here, and then you just notice you had $5 extra, but then you find out that you're actually putting that $5 extra on phone apps instead of saving it. So your monthly expense and budget sheet is going to be very important to you as you move along with everything that we got going on here.